First Alert Weather is sponsored by Ebby Halliday Real Estate.
Welcome back, friends. Well, we know that tomorrow's going to be pretty active for some in East Texas, so this next weather hit's all going to be explaining, well, why that's the case. So with your disruptive weather outlook, we've got these strong to severe thunderstorms that will become likely into the afternoon and evening, and potentially for some in deep East Texas, even to the pre-dawn morning hours of your Tuesday. But as we look on into the rest of the work week, the first full work week of January and 2023, thankfully the weather gets a lot more cooperative. Might be talking about the chance for a few showers and thunderstorms next Sunday, but we'll get there when we get there. So we've got some juice in the atmosphere. I'm sure you've walked out and noticed that it was a little extra humid today, and we just have this moisture to deal with, especially once we start to cool off into the overnight hours and early tomorrow morning. That's why we got the patchy fog, even with some of those south winds still blowing 5 to 10 miles per hour. We don't show this graphic too much, but it shows us that we've got plenty of moisture to work with. We've got dew points in the 60s and 70s easily. Once you've got values this high and then you have severe weather starting to roll in, well, the energy is there, the moisture is there for the system to work with. Now, we do have the chance for some thunderstorms throughout the late morning into the early afternoon, but we will not see likely the strongest of those thunderstorms until we get into the late afternoon into the evening hours, as we start to get a little extra lift from this nearby upper level disturbance. Monday getting into around 5 to especially 7 p.m., maybe a little earlier than 5, but it all depends on when this lift gets. Remember, taller thunderstorms usually equals stronger thunderstorms. It allows for some of those stronger winds, those updrafts to come down and get those stronger downburst winds. Plus, it just makes it a lot easier for those thunderstorms to last a lot longer. Now, this will likely continue until that cold front is able to pull that moisture away into the, again, pre-dawn morning hours of your Tuesday. So we've got the moisture to work with, and the overall atmosphere itself will be slightly spinning, a little easier for those thunderstorms to develop some of those potentially stronger tornadoes, which is why they've upgraded a good chunk of East Texas to that enhanced risk. So our main severe threats that we'll be watching for are those significant downburst winds, plus the chance for those potentially longer-lived tornadoes. And we'll also have to watch for a few of those severe thunderstorms that would develop some of that larger hail, something you don't want to be out on the roads in, and that isolated flash flooding risk, mainly for deep East Texas. So we're going to show you Futurecast here again to give you an idea of when to expect some of this, because this is a pretty broad window of time and these models are still looking a little bit messier. But as we get into the late morning hours, we'll be watching for a few lone thunder showers to develop, maybe an isolated severe thunderstorm, but then you get that extra lift from that system that's arriving overhead, and we get to 2, 4 p.m. and the overall development is expected to start to really blossom across East Texas. Heavier thunderstorms, stronger thunderstorms continuing into the evening, and maybe even for some into the overnight hours. It's all about the initialization that we can get as this cold front and that dry line get a little bit closer. Now, again, for some of you in deep East Texas throughout the pre-dawn morning hours of your Tuesday, we could see some of these extra thunderstorms develop along that cold front if enough energy hasn't been tapped out throughout the preceding thunderstorms arriving in the afternoon and evening ahead of that front. So lots of mights and maybes. You just want to make sure that you're weather alert throughout tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. Estimated rainfall totals, again, for most will not cause too much concern in terms of flash flooding, but we'll have to be careful for a few spots in deep East Texas. And just another important reminder too, know the difference between a watch and a warning. When a tornado watch is issued tomorrow or a severe thunderstorm watch, that means that you need to make sure that you have your plan ready. But then when you're included in a warning, that's when it's time to take the action. And especially for that tornado warning, make sure the kiddos know where to go. Make sure they have their shoes on too. So your 7-day forecast, again, I promise the rest of it isn't looking too shabby, and thankfully looking a little bit more like January in East Texas. We'll see highs in the upper 50s for Wednesday and Thursday, low 60s for your Friday. A lot of sunshine, and looks like the second half of next weekend might have to deal with the chance for some showers and maybe a couple thunderstorms, but details on that will become a little bit more obvious as we get later on into the next couple of days.
Never thought about it. Make sure the kids have shoes on.
I didn't either, and I believe it was Katie that mentioned it, and I'm like, that's a great point, because if something happens, you don't want to be walking over the glass and everything else. So.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. New details are emerging surrounding a machete attack not far from New York Times Square.